thank you education world for inviting me here today, and thank you for a glowing introduction. Yes, Educomp is extremely well known for our work on pioneering work on technology, but today uncomfortable thoughts in my mind, and I thought I'd share some of those things with you. One of the things that's really bothering me nowadays is the fact that everything that we think of in the field of education may not even exist 10 years from now. When we plan educational institutions, we do that with a sense of everything is going to be here forever. When we look at school visions today, we're talking and planning for 20 years, for 30 years. If we look around the schools in this room itself, we will have schools that have been existing for 50 years. Maybe there are schools that are existing here for 100 years. But can we take the past and predict the future of education? And I think sadly, the answer is no. And for a bunch of different things. The other keynote speakers tomorrow that do not even exist today. I've been part of a international working group at the World Economic Forum, which looked at the future of jobs. And the future of jobs is, as you might have guessed, is very different from what we are preparing students for today. And we have jobs like data scientists, business analytics, Internet of Things designer, and so on. We have no way of figuring out how are we going to train our students for those jobs. And that's point number one, which is relatively well known today. Number two, we are seeing a lot more parents coming up. In fact, 5 times as many parents coming up and saying that we want an alternate schooling for our children. If you probe the minds of parents and you ask them to do a laundry list of all the different things that they expect in a school, and again, our keynote speaker today put that very beautifully, and the last point that he said was they're expecting miracles. But I think they're not expecting miracles. They are simply expecting a different and alternate kind of school which is far more personalized than it's ever been before. But wait a second, wasn't school supposed to be this institution where you bring children together in a classroom, in a group? As school owners and trustees, don't we celebrate, oh now a school has got 800 students, we crossed 2,000 students in a school. We celebrate numbers, but here is what the parents are demanding. Parents are demanding smaller and smaller and smaller sizes of classrooms, right down to the fact that they expect the entire school to be run for that one son or daughter. That brings us to another problem. The capital cost of running and building schools obviously has never been higher. In fact, if you do a back of the envelope calculation for India, and I can speak only from Indian perspective, the payback on a school today in an urban area is over 10 years. And then they have this wonderful, this beautiful regulatory system in India that regulates us at both ends, the input as well as the output. So you are prescribed, this is the salary you need to pay, this is the amount of fees that you can charge, you cannot charge 10 rupees more or 10 rupees less. So in a situation where you're regulated on both ends, you're expected to run a school with smaller and smaller sizes because that's what parents are asking for. What does it mean? This means we are heading towards either a very dysfunctional educational system that is going to have so many multiple stresses that eventually it's going to break for the detriment not just of the schools but also parents and society at large. Or we need to drastically reinvent the entire system. And today I want to talk to you about what those elements of reinvention might actually be. My work in technology has made a couple of things very, very clear. Technology is here to stay. The question is not about whether we embrace it, the question is how soon and how we are going to embrace it. So today's kids are the archetypal three-screen kids. They have the television screen, they have the smartphone screen, and they have the computer screen. So the distinction between technology and home and technology and school, everything is getting completely blurred. But if there is one tool that we have in our hands to bring down the cost of education, to bring it to a level where you can balance the high capital cost as well as the personalized learning, it is the only tool that we really have is probably technology. One of the educators that I was speaking to earlier in this room told me, we always talk about child-centric schools, but the schools aren't meant for children. So I looked at him and said, what do you mean schools are not meant for children? That is the whole fundamental bedrock of educational philosophy. And he turned around and said, well, schools are actually for parents. Because parents send these kids to schools so that they can fulfill their dreams and aspirations for their kids through the school. And for a second I was taken aback. But I thought that's actually a very, very interesting perspective on how we look at schools. So schools of the future, or the reinvention of schools that we need to do, also needs to consider not simply the fact that they are child-centric, but are we becoming parent-centric? Our curriculum architecture will be different. A. The teachers of tomorrow are going to be very different from the teachers of today. Now, how are the teachers going to be different for tomorrow? Firstly, it will be completely impossible to provide for flexibility, inclusion, personalized learning, and what we call the long tail of education if we were only restricted to the teachers that were physically present in the campus. There's a friend of mine, his name is Ben Nelson, and he ran something very exciting. It's called the Minerva Project, which has been funded more than $100 million. Some of you in the audience know about this program. He imagined an educational institution where the students come to campus and they learn the social, interpersonal skills that are so important for them to learn by working together, by playing together, by doing projects together. However, the campus does not have any teachers. Every teacher is beamed into campus through hi-fi, high-fidelity video conferencing. So schools have then the power to choose the best teacher for not just that particular course or grade, but for each and individual student. Good teachers are a scarce commodity. Great teachers are rapidly becoming extinct. So we need to scale the teacher. We need to rethink of, is this teacher meant just for the 20 or 30 students in the classroom, or can a teacher become someone who offers their expertise across the world at any point of time? Schools of the future will need to incorporate the system of flexibility by embracing technology. But there are tools available for it today. Fortunately, we don't need to reinvent the tools. We simply have to reinvent our thinking. So if you look at a tool like fliplearn.com, for example, it provides a digital platform for schools. Students can join in from all over the world. Teachers can join in. Teachers can upload their educational content. So this is not a demo of FlipLearn, but essentially tools like FlipLearn, learning management systems like FlipLearn are giving the power in the hands of the teacher so that they can democratize education, make it flexible, and most importantly, someone in the audience said, how do we bring down the cost of quality education and make it affordable? If you go back 5,000 years, we had gurukuls in India. Aren't parents today demanding something very similar? Saying that, please put our children in modern day gurukuls, where you have a very small classroom size, you have 3 or 5 teachers, every child has a personalized learning path. But we cannot fulfill the goals of 21st century education by creating gurukuls. In India, we need to deal with the challenge of looking at 8.6 crore kids who are outside the school system. today's headlines in the Times of India. They are not even in a school. So how are you going to do that unless you very rapidly adopt technology in every facet of your school? In short, everything is going to change. With flipped learning becoming more and more pervasive across all schools, teachers are not going to be required to provide the cognitive, the IQ component. Teachers are going to be needed to provide the EQ component, and more importantly, the SQ component. If you look at a world today that is more conflict-ridden than ever before, we have to redefine the role of the teacher. We have to flip the teacher, not just flip the educational content. So can we look at a teacher today, retrain and reinvent her to say, look, your primary job is to provide the emotional intelligence that kids need. Your primary job is to provide the SQ, the sense quotient, the spiritual quotient that the kids need to do. And that will need for us to completely rethink the education system. I know everybody in the room here is an education leader, and you have the influence, the formal authority, the informal authority, because you're owners, you're managers, to actually make a change and make a beginning. We should demolish these thoughts in our mind that in education, change takes a long time. It needn't. It can start from today. But we have to first think of ourselves as change makers, because if we do not change and do not start by going back to our schools and doing a meeting of our top management and top teachers and say, look, this is what is coming down the line. If we don't prepare for it today, we are going to become extinct. Look what's happened in the higher education system in India. We controlled capacity, we did not give quality. India has now the dubious distinction of being the #1 exporter of students in the world. You think that can't happen with schools? Take my word for it, it can also happen with schools, unless we make that change today. So my life's experience, my message to the people here today are, you are not simply school leaders. You need to be change makers for tomorrow, and the framework of that change is everything is in front of us. We need to get together and create our own reinvention path for our schools. Certainly, technology is going to form the bedrock of doing that, but technology is not the only thing that is going to enable us to change. The change has to start here in our minds, and the time for that is now. Thank you very much for listening.